I'm delighted to welcome everyone to our 40th anniversary AGM this year. I want to take this opportunity to share some of the highlights from the past year. 2023 was a testament of the power of collaboration, unwavering dedication, and the substantial growth, and marking the past as a pivotal chapter in CAP's history. Together, we have achieved remarkable progress that amplifies our collective voice and fortifies our ability to effectively advocate for welfare for our resilient farmers, shaping a promising future for agriculture in Manitoba. A significant accomplishment this year has been our collaboration with key partners. Recognizing the multifaceted nature of agriculture, we have fostered stronger bonds between government, industry stakeholders, fellow agricultural organizations. Through these partnerships, we have tackled challenges faced by our farmers more effectively, finding sustainable solutions that will propel our sector into the future. The invaluable support from those partners have played a crucial role in achieving our shared objectives. The success of the 2023 Annual General Meeting and the enhanced format of our Advisory Council meetings has allowed us to connect directly with you and the grassroots of CAP. We firmly believe that the impact allowing us to advocate begins at that local level, and the direct input from farmers across Manitoba continues to shape our policies and initiatives, upholding our commitment to ensure every farmer's voice is heard. We're incorporated in concerns and aspirations of those who work tirelessly in our fields and in barns into the decision-making process. An example of grassroots influence was our province-wide consultation on the election priorities guiding our advocating efforts. These priorities reflect the diverse needs of our farmers and underscore the vital role of agriculture and our role in being part of the province. A number of these items that have occurred in the last year, first and foremost, the reduction of 50% on the education property tax, $400,000 secured in funding in Ag in the Classroom Manitoba, 5 additional seats for large animal vet students at the college in Saskatoon, 50% reduction in Ag Crown land forage leases for 2023. We met with 70 meetings with provincial and federal elected officials, $70,000 in funding secured per student for unfunded students that are attending the veterinarian school in Saskatoon. Successful adoption of the online platform for the Environmental Farm Plan, with currently at the end of the year 344 certificates issued. 2023 advocating efforts extend across various fronts, including engagement with various government bodies, industry organizations, the farming community. Noteworthy activities to highlight include advocating for the farmers' exemption of the underused housing tax, contributing to the modernization of the seeds regulation with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and providing insights to the Standing Senate Committee of Agriculture and Forestry regarding soil health. You can read more about the numerous other efforts that occurred in the last year in our 22-23 annual report, and it's at cap2023update.ca, so that's something you can easily get to. In our pursuit of excellence, the CAP board has undergone extensive governance training to make informed decisions that benefit our members. This training has equipped us with the skills and knowledge necessary to steer CAP into a brighter future. With the enhanced governance structure, we are poised to make sound decisions and execute our initiatives with precision. A few days ago, our CAP board approved our strategic plan that will guide our activities and advocating efforts into the next 4 years. This plan sets the stage for our continued growth and success, ensuring a robust future of Manitoba agriculture industry. Looking ahead to 2024, we're committed to building upon the achievements of 2023. Our priorities include increased engagement with the Manitoba farmers, continued emphasis on agriculture matters, advocating strategies, and nurturing partnerships forged in the past year. We're dedicated to expand our outreach, ensure our message resonates across the province, and that the significance of agriculture is understood and appreciated by all. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge again the significance of celebrating 40 years of an organization. Okay, so moving on, we've got the financial statement and audit report to be provided, and I'd like to call upon our auditor with MNP, Jeff, to present, and then we can go over if there's any questions. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jill, and good morning, everyone. As Jill mentioned, my name is Jeff Eckstein. I'm a partner in MNP's Winnipeg office, and I'm the lead engagement partner on the CAP audit. And I'm going to do a high-level presentation and overview of the October 31st, 2023 audited financial statements. Okay, so I'm going to begin with the independent auditor's report. This is a standard audit report. It's an unmodified or clean audit report for the current fiscal year. No changes. If you would have compared this wording of this report to last year's financial statements, the only thing that's really changing are the dates. And as you'll see, the important paragraph of this report is the first one, the opinion paragraph, which does say that these financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with the Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. So that is a clean audit report. In terms of some of the other paragraphs that are included in there, it outlines management's responsibilities, auditors, various auditors' responsibility. Other information covers off the organization's annual report. On the website, these financial statements are included within the annual report, so we are required to review that annual report information. Just a consistency check to make sure that there's nothing disclosed in that annual report that, from our perspective as auditors of the organization, is inconsistent with what's in the financial statements or with the information we obtained during the audit. So that'll take us to the first statement of the financial statements, which is the statement of financial position. So as you'll see, doing a year-over-year comparison, total assets were up from the prior year with an increase of approximately $22,000 or 1% from October 2022. Cash increased $38,000. And that increase was partially offset by about a $19,000 reduction in accounts receivable. And those changes in cash and accounts receivable are really just a result of the timing of collection of receivables and timing of collection of various program funding. Prepaid expenses also increased, and that's due to the timing of the payment to Canadian Federation of Agriculture. We also see that the capital assets decreased, and that's primarily due to the amortization expense for the current period. So moving on to liabilities. Liabilities increased by about $59,000 year over year. You'll see there's an increase in producer refunds payable of $185,000, and that was offset partially by a decrease of $32,000 in the unearned membership fees, and a decrease in deferred revenues of approximately $97,000. Increase in the producer's refund payable was a result of really increased compliance with checkoffs, which just resulted in a higher volume of producer refunds to be processed. Unearned membership fees decreased due to the timing of the members paying for their 23-24 memberships, with producers paying after October 31st, 2023. And lastly, deferred revenue decreased due to the spending of funds that were received in the previous fiscal year, spending of those funds in the current year for the farm safety program and environmental farm plan. And then the bottom section, the net assets, we see a $36,000 decrease from the prior year. And as we get to the next statement, you'll see that just represents the current year deficiency. So overall, looking at that statement of financial position at October 31st, 2023, cash resources and working capital of the organization continue to remain healthy. Moving on to statement of operations and changes in net assets, starting with the revenue section. Overall, total revenues were consistent with the prior year, small decrease of about 11,000 or 0.5% compared to the prior year. There was a decrease in the province of Manitoba revenue of 100,000, as you'll see, and that really related to the completion of the online platform for the environmental farm plan in the previous fiscal year. And that decrease was mostly offset by smaller increases in membership revenue, loyalty payment, donations, and interest revenue. Okay, on to the expenses. Total expenses increased about 97,000 or 5% year over year. Overall increase in expenses was largely due to an increase in the annual meeting expenses of about 120,000, and as well as the environmental farm program expenses of about 174,000. As you'll see, there was a decrease in the online environmental farm program piece of 365,000, and again, that goes back to the completion of that online platform work and project in the previous year. IT technology consulting saw an increase of about 15,000, and that was due to some IT consulting for improvements to enhance the organization's cybersecurity posture. Legal and professional increased about 16,000 due to the completion of the strategic plan. So, deficiency of revenue over expenses for 2023. If somebody could just scroll that one down a little bit. There we go. So, deficiency of revenue over expenses for 2023 before other items was approximately 33,000. As you'll see, there were some small $3,000 of unrealized losses on the investment portfolio, and those are unrealized, so that's just looking at the market value of the various marketable securities within the investment portfolio as at October 1st. So that 3,000 loss would really only be if those securities were sold as at that date, which they weren't. So we label that as an unrealized, not realized loss. So factoring in that 3,000 unrealized loss, that takes us to a current year deficiency of 36,000 and an ending net asset balance of 1,429,000. The next statement is a statement of cash flows, and this statement just breaks out the change in the year-over-year cash balance by operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. So what this statement shows for the current year, the organization generated cash from operating activities of about 56,000 and had a net decrease in cash from investing activities of 17,000 with no cash generated or used for financing activities in the current year. So this resulted in the total year-over-year increase in the cash balance. So that takes care of the primary statements. What accompanies the primary statements are note disclosures that are required by the Canadian not-for-profit accounting standard. So for us to be able to issue an opinion, a clean opinion on these financial statements, the required financial statement disclosures need to be included. These disclosures include a summary of the accounting policies that these financial statements are based on, and the rest of the disclosures, for the most part, are just providing some additional information on various line items in the balance sheet or the statement of operation. Now, in these financial statements, there are also 8 schedules that are included as well that are a breakdown of some of the key programs: farm safety, environmental farm plan, the labor, and then some schedules outlining general expenses, admin expenses, and so on and so forth. So that's a quick and dirty high-level overview of these audited financial statements. And I think now is some time if there's any questions. Should we go on there?
Reg Martin at District 2. Going over the financial statements, as you said before, we have a decrease in revenues of 0.5% and an increase of expenses of 5%. So I think we really have to look at either increasing our revenue or decreasing our expenses. And one thing that really stands out is the cost of the annual meeting at $149,787. It's really not fair to compare it to the $29,974 from the year before, because we were still within the COVID times at that time.
Right.
So I'll bring you back to 2019, which is probably the last year before COVID affected the annual meeting and whatnot, and the expenses then were some $77,000. So really the cost of the annual meeting is twice as much as it was 4 years ago. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I can add some high-level comments, and then management is free to comment as well. So yeah, we had a healthy discussion on this, both with the finance committee when we met with them this past Friday. It was discussed at the board meeting on Monday as well. Really, the reality is as we all know, from 2019 to even this time last year, we were in a very high inflationary environment. So you quoted the 2019 annual meeting costs, $77,000, rounded up to $80,000. I can tell you that inflation from then to last year, even higher today, for things like this, hotel rooms, audio, visual, meals and entertainment, multiply that number by 35%, and you're looking at a more realistic number. So you take that 80, multiply it by 1.3, 1.35, that gets you to around 115, 120, and I think the difference between that number and the 149 was, with that being the first meeting after a couple of years back in person, I think the overall attendance was up, and I think management also alluded to in our previous discussions that there were some members who had registered, but some of them didn't ultimately end up attending, but CAP incurs the costs based on the kind of numbers that they need to confirm a couple of days in advance as well. So I think, unless I've missed anything, Brenna or Jill, feel free to pipe in.
Just in whole numbers, the difference for individuals that registered and did not actually attend represented almost $50,000 in additional cost for us holding that. And the other significant increase was the availability and use of AV equipment, and trying to have provide that additional service that we wouldn't have had back in 2019, which was another, we're looking at an excess of 35% increase on what those costs were. So definitely looking forward now, when we went over our budget for this year, generating additional money from sponsorship, and really delving in on having some hard numbers going forward is certainly going to assist in having some really good budget numbers and targets to hit for this current year. So it hasn't gone unseen, like Jeff has mentioned. We've had numerous discussions over the last year, even as soon as like 1 month after our AGM last year, discussing those increases. So it's first and foremost on our minds when we're discussing the finances. But thank you for that question.
Oh, that's not the last question. So I couldn't fail to notice, and some of my colleagues have too, that on the 31st of October. I'm sorry. On the 31st of October, we had a cash balance of $753,000, and then there was $655,406 in the investment account. This generated a total of $28,361 of investment income. Now, This only gives us a net return of 2.01%, okay? You can check the numbers if you want to. The cash balance alone at $753.724 invested in a high-interest savings account in any one of the credit unions in Manitoba would have generated $20,727. So why is there doesn't seem to be, I know that the investment or market-based investments didn't do well last year, they're improving now, but it doesn't seem in that amount of money that there's much of a investment return. Could you comment on that one, please?
Yeah, I can take a high level crack. So yeah, included in the, you know, there's professional fees, you know, as well to manage the portfolio as well. So those are kind of netted in that number. But I hear you. I think cash, you can see the interest revenue is up year over year, 28,000 compared to, you know, 13, let's call it. So it's double. I think that's what you're seeing in the cash balance aspect. I think reality is comparing October 22 to October 23 in that 12-month period. You know, yeah, markets weren't pumping out great returns during that period. I think that's a reality there.
Good, thank you. That still doesn't give us much of a cash return. Like on the return on the cash itself, is it invested from month to month?
Yeah. I'll just make a quick comment on that cash number. It's a point of time, and I think at year end, in reflecting the number, we have to certainly allow for a significant amount of refund checks that are sent out in that period. So traditionally, if you look at the balances, and it's showing year over year that the cash balance is significantly high, we have made significant, one of the garnered moves with the Finance Committee was to be able to have a high interest savings account for money that, you know, at when we have surpluses, but at year end that represents the majority of that money would be in a cash account that's not interest bearing, just because of the vast number of checks that are out that have been wrote for normal operating. So it does look like there's a huge, you know, that number is quite significant. But again, we do and have moved money into a high savings account to generate some interest income, and of course our you know, the policies that we are bound by as a board for safety and to get a reasonable rate of return, those policies are in place to provide a safe, you know, and not investing in high risk scenarios. So those are the policies that we are garnered by for that movement of cash.
Okay, well, thank you very much. If you have any more questions, I'll make sure I ask them to you.
David Rourke, District 1. Just one question on the liabilities of this Statement of Financial Position. Producer refund payable. It's about 2.5 times the previous number. Is that because it's easier to get money back, or less engaged, or are people mad? And is there any way to determine why that number is so much higher?
Yeah, I think it's just a factor of in this instance, you know, there's a little bit of timing there. I think there was an increase in activity, you know, at the elevators with checkoff. So just more volume coming in, which means, you know, more processing time by the organization to, you know, to kind of figure out refunds and process the checks at the end of the day. I don't think there's anything like majorly systemic in there. I know Brenda's coming up to add some flavor in there as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think what it also comes down to, we have greater participation from our designated purchasers on doing the checkoff. So we're having larger sums of money when they're compliant with the legislation. So when they're actually doing the checkoff, there's more participation from the designated purchasers, so therefore we have to refund that money. That also explains why the cash is high, because at $315,000 we do have to pay out to farmers after year end. So that's where some of that comes from.
Neil Galbraith, District 9. Just on the producer refunds, it may be in here and I haven't found it yet. So percent refunded, I know we had more people complying and then more producers asking for money back. Did our overall percent change much of refund of?
Decreased over last year. So we had 300 refund requests this year, and last year was about 456.
No, I meant more in a percent of revenue. We always used to get it on the board as a percent of, I forget what it was 5% or 7%? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we're one of the lowest, and we decreased over last year. We'll get that percentage right away.
Yeah, I apologize, I don't have those numbers handy. Any more questions?
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks. And thanks for the questions. Now, I would like to call a motion to accept the 2023 audited financial statements as recommended by the Board of Directors.
Les Ferris, District 2, I shall so move.
Seconder?
Charles Fossey, District 6, I second.
Thank you. Discussions or questions? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
Kevin Stott, I so move.
And seconder?
Ridge Marginet, District 2, I shall move.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, I would like to call upon George Graham for commencement of our resolution. Kevin Peters and Colin Penner. Yes. And I'm going to take a seat.
I have a question.
Yes.
We just witnessed a bunch of self-accolades about farm policy this morning, and yet resolutions are the last item on the agenda. There's a total contradiction.
We're saving the best to last so that we can have good discussion.
Some of our eyes are kind of glazed over from last night, so I'm not sure that we're doing that.
I heard we had a lot of resolution discussion last evening, so, okay.
Good morning. My name is George Graham. I'm the chair of the Resolutions Committee. The resolutions procedure is in your delegate package. I hope everyone's had a chance to go over it. Could I have a motion to ratify this procedure?
Cal Penner, District 3, I would so move.
Thank you.
Les Phelps, second.
Thank you, Les. Members of the Resolutions Committee will only read the resolved portion of each resolution. Voting is to be done by your clicker. Pressing A means you're in favor. Pressing B means you oppose the resolution. If I can ask Colin to read the first resolution, please.
Resolved that CAP lobby the Government of Canada and the Government of Manitoba to ensure that renewable diesel is the preferred fuel for agriculture, letting us be one step closer to net zero.
Do we have a mover?
David Rourke, District 1.
Thank you, David. Do we have a seconder?
Carter McKinney, District 1.
Thank you, Carter. Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
Yes, I would. Obviously, a lot of things are happening in agriculture, and one of the things that are happening is that food companies are making zero or even net zero pledges, placing more pressure on Scope 3 supply chain to reduce their emissions. One of the ways that we can do that is using renewable diesel. And not long ago, I didn't really know what the difference between renewable diesel and straight vegetable oil was, but it's hydro-treated plant-based or animal-based oils making diesel fuel. You can call it green or renewable, but it's essentially used exactly the same and has the same characteristics as diesel. So rather than worrying about hydrogen or electric, because our combines and big tractors have essentially a continuous duty cycle, this is kind of the easy button, is to use renewable diesel in our farms. And they're going to be used for the airplane industry or the train industry, but I think we should have the priority in agriculture to be the first in line to use it. And if there's any subsidies or incentives to use it, they should come our way first. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We'll open the floor for discussion. And if you come to the mic, if you could identify yourself and give your district, please.
Kevin Stott.
So that's a good question, but I think there's optimums for everything. And my personal preference is that there's not enough biofuels in the world for everybody to have their share of, say, renewable diesel. So agriculture should be first, and then we should use it as well as we can without overproducing. And soybeans tend not to be as good for the land as other crops. So canola is better, but we can overdo it too. And so let us be the first in terms of priorities.
Charles Fossey, District 6. I appreciate what David is saying and what District 1 is requesting here, but really my understanding is, like, under the clean fuel regulations, basically as we go forward, all fuels will be basically renewable diesel products. Some percentage of the fuels will be renewable products, because the government has set out these regulations saying that all fuels will have to start reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions they have over the next, I think it's 7 or 8 years. So really, you can't segregate what products are going to be renewable and which ones aren't, and who's going to get priority over other people. David talks a little bit about safe aviation fuel, or sustainable aviation fuel, pardon me. It's called SAFE, and it stands for sustainable aviation fuel. That's more of a kerosene product than it is a diesel product. So the big roadblock here right now is that down in the States, they have built dozens of plants to start processing renewable diesel. There's a huge market in California that's demanding it. The problem is, here in Canada, we are building crushing plants to increase the amount of canola oil that can be used in these here products, in this renewable diesel product. But we don't have the refineries, or it's not really building a new refinery, it's taking existing refineries and adapting them to use vegetable oil as part of their process in producing diesel fuel. And the stumbling block is, in the States, companies are getting stimulus packages to build them. Here in Canada, the government is not providing any stimulus packages to get this type of work done at the refineries. So we really need to be encouraging the government of Canada to providing some kind of stimulus package to get things built. Otherwise, we're just going to be exporting either our canola seed or our canola oil to the US and then bringing product back into Canada. So I really think we need to be looking at doing the stimulus package rather than talking about making renewable diesel a preferred fuel for agriculture.
Thanks, Chuck. Any further discussion?
I would like to vote in favor of this subject, not because I have any particular knowledge in it, but I know that David is very learned, has studied lots in this, so I trust his judgment.
Thanks, Reg.
Delaney Ross Burtnack with Manitoba Canola Growers. Just a question about clarity of wording. In reading the resolution, the term preferred fuel, I felt can be interpreted two ways, either to mandate farmers to use it, as in farmers must use renewable diesel, or what I think David was intending, which is to make it available to farmers first. So I wonder if wording like renewable diesel is prioritized for use in agriculture might be more clear in terms of direction and what the outcome is intended to be with the resolution.
You'd like to amend the resolution?
I don't know if I want to propose an amendment exactly, but but just to ensure that this isn't misinterpreted in David's intention, what I assume is David's intention in the future.
I don't think that changes the intent, but I'll let David.
Yeah, that was the intent, and I think that was some of the original wording, and it got changed a little bit. So that was certainly the intent. And in terms of Chuck's comments, I'm not sure if he's for or against it, but I would have suggested his comments were for it. If we need to change that word, that would be fine with me. I'd be open to an amendment, but I think, as you said, the intent is there.
JKR District 1, I will propose that amendment. So the wording would be ensure that renewable diesel is prioritized for use in agriculture. David, does that? Because I think that gets across. So the wording would be renewable diesel is prioritized for use in agriculture. I need someone to second. Right?
We'll need someone to second that.
Can I second that or not?
All right.
I'll second
Open the
it.
floor for discussion on the amendment.
I think this is a good opportunity, this resolution, because we get hung up a little bit on biodiesel and using vegetable oils and things just because it's relevant to our industry. But there's a lot of emerging technologies, such as carbon capture technology that pulls carbon right out of the air and can make fuel out of it. So I think a resolution like this could at least get us at the table when talking to governments, if there's opportunities there, that we can put agriculture's name forward as a potential usage source for renewable diesel projects and renewable fuels, so that we can be at the table to get priority on that, because as of now, we don't have the option for electric combines and tractors and all this stuff. So if they want us to be greener, this is a good way of getting our name in the conversation and getting renewable diesels that are not necessarily just biofuels, but other new emerging technologies as well.
Thank you, Carter. Any further discussion on the amendment?
This Scott Melvin, District 2. This is kind of an interesting proposition because they're both the producer and consumer for this particular product. But the problem is we only have one atmosphere, and who is actually burning the product that we're producing is really not relevant as to how much pollution it's causing. precipitate from enacting something like this.
Thank you very much.
Just a point of order, George, that we should have the vote on the amendment before we debate the amended resolution. So if we can have an actual vote on proceeding with the amendment, and then we'll discuss the amendment. We haven't had that vote. We had a motion on the floor and seconded for the amendment, but we have not voted as a body to accept the amendment. So we should do that before we actually discuss and debate the new resolution.
We're discussing the amendment, and if
we need to first have
Okay.
the new resolution on
Okay.
the floor to debate it, and
All
we
right.
haven't done that yet. So we just need a vote to accept the amendment.
Gotcha. All right, we'll call for a vote to accept the amendment. A accepts, B rejects. Good. All right, now we can, any discussion on the resolution as amended? Pardon? The amendment was accepted. Any further discussion?
It's been suggested that I suggest that we close debate on that.
Very good. All those in favor of the resolution as amended?
Be it resolved that CAP lobby the government of Manitoba to hire more conservation officers who are offered competitive salaries to deal with hunting violations.
We have a mover?
Charles Fossey, District 6.
Seconder?
Brad Knight, District 6.
Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the person who made this resolution at our district annual meeting here to talk about it. But basically, in northwest part of District 6, there's been a number of offenses occurring up there, and there just hasn't been enough conservation officers to enforce, the rules around hunting and conservation of animals, all that stuff. So we really feel that the government of Manitoba needs to hire more conservation officers. And I am told that a lot of the officers who do get trained here in Manitoba eventually leave to go to other provinces because of higher compensation. So that's when we brought in this second part here, dealing with competitive salaries in order to keep conservation officers in Manitoba where they've been trained so that they can provide services to all Manitoba citizens when it comes to wildlife.
Thank you very much. Open the floor for discussion. Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Resolution number 3.
Be it resolved that CAP lobby the Pest Management Regulatory Agency to amend the pest control products regulations, which would allow for greater flexibility, timeliness, and simplicity for the application of pesticides using drones for research purposes.
Mover like to speak to that?
Reg Dick, District 3, I move.
Seconder?
Charles Kinsler, District 3, I second.
Sorry, Reg, now you can speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this resolution comes out of a crop tour I did in the summer with the University of Manitoba at Rutherford Farms, and there's a large trial. There's lots of trials going on there. They have all kinds of things. They have sensors in the ground. They have atmospheric sensors. They have insect traps and all these things. And the people running it, the name of the project is called Emily. They were telling us that they had a problem in that when they were using drones for research purposes, they could only put water in the drone because they can't go off label, of course. And so it really was restricting the research they were doing. So in my opinion, this is maybe the first step in where we should be headed. I've done a little bit of research, and thanks to Neil did quite a bit of research on this, but in other jurisdictions, namely I'm told in the US, it's mostly wide open in most of the states. I think there's 12 states have restrictions, but the Midwest, where you could spray, if it's registered to spray by air, you could spray it with a drone. So that's our competitors. So just a note to how fast things change. I was recently, over Christmas, I was in a US city, and my son-in-law ordered a driverless car, and the car came in 6 minutes, exactly when it said it would. The car picked us up and took us to a destination, and then it brought us back. It was just, we just did a test. But this technology is coming, and it's here already, and it's moving really fast. And if we don't stay with it, so we know there's drones out there. We know there's people spraying with them. I saw it in Brandon. There's people selling drones, and yet we can't even get research done to say if this is a good thing or timely thing. And my understanding is that the process is that the chemical company has to apply for the license and then get PMRA to do it, but it's quite complicated. And so, anyway, long story short, the research people were really wishing they could put some product into the drones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reg. Open the floor for discussion.
Les Fells, District 4. Reg brought up a good point when he was saying that the chemical companies have to sign off on this. I guess there's the issue here is if you're using a drone, the amount of chemical you're using is very limited, and are the chemical companies going to be interested in even signing off? And is there some way of getting them more involved in this process also? I mean, there's nothing wrong with the resolution. I'm well in favor of it, but if the chemical companies are not going to be on board, then this isn't going anywhere.
Well, I think what we found out at the Resolutions Committee was that they need research to be done to know if their chemicals are safe to be used. You need to open the door to allow research first, then we'll find chemicals to use. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Resolution number 4.
Be it resolved that CAP, in cooperation with relevant stakeholders, jointly organize a Canada Grain Act Summit to review common CGA policy objectives and to develop and endorse common CGA policy recommendations that maintain the effectiveness and integrity of both the Canada Grain Act and the Canada Grain Commission to act in the interests of producers, and be it further resolved that the common CGA policy recommendations from the summit be communicated to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and the 3 CGC commissioners with the request for a follow-up meeting.
Mover would like to speak to the resolution?
John Sanborn, I will move. District 12.
And seconder?
James Webb, District 12. I second that.
Thank you. Would the mover like to speak? Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was brought up at our District 12 annual meeting before Christmas there, but unfortunately the person that was bringing this forward, Leonard Glushko, was not able to be at the meeting here, so I will speak to this. Basically, this is asking CAP and the farmers of Manitoba to join with farmers in Alberta and Saskatchewan that have already approved this. We're looking at having more consolidation in the grain handling industry, and this resolution is just looking to have a common farm voice that would keep our powers that we do have and meet with the federal government to have more discussion with them to get the best outcome for the farmers.
Thank you, John. Open the floor for discussion.
Charles Fossey, District 6. I certainly support the intent of this resolution. I mean, I think in the last 20, 25 years, they have tried to review and update the Canada Grain Act at least 3 times, maybe more. There have been a few minor tweaks through regulations, but not dealing with the act itself. I know CAP did make a presentation a few years back about changes to the Canada Grains Act. And I know that next month, the Grain Commission is meeting with producer organizations here in Manitoba to talk about various issues. I haven't seen the agenda, so I don't know if it's going to be dealing with the Grain Act or just dealing with grading and other policy issues. But I certainly, as I said, support the need to look at the Grain Act, update it, and to ensure that the Grain Act still requests or mandates that the Canadian Grain Commission act in the best interest of producers. A few years back, there was a push to change it that the Grain Commission act in the best interest of the grain industry rather than producers. And this is one of the few tools that we have, the Grain Commission and the Canadian Grain Act, that really identifies producer interests ahead of the industry.
Thanks, Chuck. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Resolution number 5.
Resolved that CAP lobby the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to prioritize the replacement of the bridge on the Manning Canal on PTH 311, as well as install a temporary canal crossing.
The mover like to speak to, or do we have a mover for this resolution?
I think most of us know that this bridge burned this last year.
Oh,
Dennis Thiessen, District 4.
No, you're moving the resolution?
I move the resolution.
Can we have a seconder, please?
Kevin Stott, I'll second it.
Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
Most of you will know this bridge was lost on 311, and it's a major thoroughfare. It's not just a minor highway, it's a major highway. And we need to speed up the replacement. There's safety concerns in terms of 911 and that kind of thing. It would be very sad if we would lose a life because this bridge is taking too long to get replaced.
Thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion.
As Dennis said, it's a safety concern for 911 and such, but also it's moved a lot of traffic to other highways that aren't built to accommodate that amount of traffic, and also creates a safety concern on other highways now too.
Thank you very much.
Mark Grimple, Manitoba Pork. This, in many ways, is a for instance resolution, certainly at least in part coming as a result of the inaction on the part of the provincial government for maintenance and repair of infrastructure which falls under their jurisdiction. An unofficial count shows probably 23 bridges that are lacking in serving agriculture and our rural communities and our economies. Personally, we farm a couple of miles from the bridge that was destroyed on Provincial Highway 311. Concern for the closure of that highway extends beyond that one bridge. The bridge crossing the Manning Canal, the next one to the north, is also closed because it is inoperable. The bridge on the canal 2 miles to the southeast was destroyed by arson in 2018, has never been replaced, remains closed to this day. The next bridge down the canal after that has a 13 metric ton load limit on it, so basically passenger vehicles, does not help agriculture. And so the, you can begin to get a picture of the extent that all of this detouring has on farmers and businesses in our area. We lack confidence that the bridge on the 311 will actually receive any level of priority. Diverting the highway traffic onto gravel roads is one thing when it's necessary for a couple of hours. It's a significantly compounded problem when those detours are in place for months and years. Is this resolution the best way to get needed and crucial infrastructure operating? I'm not sure that we can answer that, but we can't afford to do nothing. We have to continue to push in every way we can, not only for this bridge, but we need some place to put our finger down and start, and that's why we're bringing this resolution forward. And for these reasons, I would urge your support for this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? That resolution is carried. This now brings us to our resolutions to be reaffirmed. These were sent to the board, the Resolutions Committee by District 4. These resolutions were discussed and passed in the past 5 years, I believe. And I'm not sure, most of them have been dealt with, some aren't, any that have been taken to the National Board have been dealt with. So if we have someone to move or to move, do you want to move all 5 of them?
I can move all 5 of them.
Okay.
The intent of me, of our district sending them to the office was to find out or get clarification on what had been done or what was the end result of these resolutions, if they should be continuing on. Maybe some of them have been resolved, I don't know.
Okay.
And I think before any resolution is sent off into the sunset, we should have that information in front of us to make that decision.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what, you want them reaffirmed here
Sure.
one by one?
Yes, we will.
All right. Can we reaffirm them as a group or as?
As a group is fine.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that?
Kevin Stott, I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Open the floor for discussion to reaffirm the resolutions. Go ahead, Les.
There may be other resolutions that are on this destination for being sunset, but I picked these out because they were I wasn't sure where they were at, and they definitely concerned our district. So I don't know if any other districts sent in any requests at all, but I believe all the sunset resolutions should, our delegates should be informed as to what the position or what the management has done with these resolutions.
Thank you very much.
Reg Marginet, District 2. I'm particularly interested in this expanding natural gas capacity one, and where it's standing, and it's a great thing it's being reaffirmed. Like there's been a group in central Manitoba that has been trying to expand natural gas and through our area, and they've asked different places throughout Manitoba to come on board to see if we could get a broader web of natural gas in rural Manitoba. We, even as recent as 2 weeks ago, we saw in Alberta where there was a lack of electrical generating capacity, and Manitoba, through Saskatchewan, used their electrical grid in order to help Alberta. Like, there's not enough power being produced in Manitoba from the electrical grid, and especially if you look in the future where there's going to be more electrical vehicles and whatnot. And we have a real problem in rural Manitoba to do any kind of economic expansion because we're at a lack of natural gas, which is crucial for that. So I'd just sort of like to reaffirm this resolution, but I'd also like to ask where it's sitting at now, if any work has been done on it.
Thanks, Reg. Any further discussion?
Well, I just think it's important to note with the natural gas, it's easier to meet some of these carbon requests from the government if we would have the ability to go to a natural gas, which we don't.
Yes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question to reaffirm the 5 resolutions from District 4. All those in favor? There's 6, I guess.
Yeah, 6.
6, yep. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you to the Resolutions Committee.
Thank you for the debate and the discussion, and like I mentioned before, we save the best to last, right? To discuss resolutions. It's always a great way to engage. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today and for your contributions to policy discussion. Our organization is built on the participation of our grassroots, and without your involvement at venues like this, we could not continue to effectively fulfill our role as the unified voice of Manitoba farmers. I hope each of you have found value in today's meeting and were able to use this opportunity to connect with other farmers from across the province. Thank you to everyone who put their name forward to be a member of our board, and again to each and every one of you for taking the time to be here for this meeting. It is a far trip for many of you, so I want you all to know that we do truly appreciate you taking the time and effort to be here and meet with us. Thank you to the past presidents who were able to make it out to our meeting and to our conference and evening last night. Your commitment and dedication to the growth and success of CAP over the last 40 years has been key to our success today. Let's give each and one of them a round of applause.